Okay, and now it is time to introduce our speakers. Our host today is Robert Norland, founder and CEO of Association Reserves. Robert has been a national leader in the reserve study field, influencing the community association industry for over 30 years. He regularly writes on the topic of reserve studies and speaks at industry functions throughout the nation. Association Reserves has prepared over 45,000 reserve studies for association-governed communities in all 50 states. Robert Sides, the 2018 National Manager of the Year winner in the on-site category, is currently a high-rise manager in Los Angeles, California. Robert has over 25 years in the community association industry, holds a number of industry credentials, and is active in his local CAI chapter. Kate Hightshoe is Director of Community Management at Hubble Realty in West Des Moines, Iowa. With a diverse career background, Kate has found success in community association management. She is the 2018 National Manager of the Year winner in the Portfolio Manager category. And now I'd like to turn the floor over to Robert Norland. Robert?
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's a real treat to be here today with two community association management experts who are ready to share some of their tips for professional success. We asked them to join us because they are the 2018 National Manager of the Year award winners, the top performers in their field. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the contest, we just learned that that's a majority of those of you attending here today. It's a national event started in 2013, designed to identify, recognize, and reward the top managers in our country. It's divided into two categories, and so two speakers today, on-site managers and portfolio managers. And it's been impressive to learn what the finalists, and especially the winners, have been doing for their client properties. It's nice to just bask and hear their stories. I'm sure you'll find it stimulating and inspiring as they share some of the tips and techniques they rely on to deliver high performance management for their client associations on an ongoing basis. So at this time, let me turn it over to Robert Sides, and he's going to share from his point of view as an on-site manager. Robert, the microphone's all yours.
Okay, thank you so much, and kudos to you board members that are on today's webinar. Your commitment to this is to be commended. And so good afternoon and happy holidays, everybody. We'll go to the first slide here, and some of you will see that this is the toughest job you'll ever love, and this includes you board members as well. You know, where the secretary is saying, should I use the actual names for the minutes or the names the homeowners were calling you? We've all had that moment a time or two, but clearly this particular occupation, and those of you that serve in a voluntary capacity, quite honestly, where else can you really touch the lives in a positive manner each and every day in your community? And it's one thing that keeps me going. I know it keeps the top managers going, is we just really enjoy helping other people, and that's really the name of the game in this industry. So I'm going to touch on two different topics, and one of them is experts and the other is tech, which I really love playing in. But when we get to the field of experts, that's really a foundational thing for me. And for you board members, I think you'll enjoy the perspective here as well. But how many times have you been at a board meeting and one of the homeowners gets up and points at you or the board and says, hey, you're supposed to know this, give me some answers? And the key for all of us at that time is not getting tripped up, because it's so easy to fall into the trap of saying, okay, yes, I do know the answers. I'm supposed to know the answers. And my caution is that by using experts, you can get around that. And the other thing that I like to put out there as a tip for the managers, and quite honestly for you board directors as well, is you don't have to be the expert when somebody points at you. There is nothing wrong with standing back and just saying, hey, look, I'll find the answer to that and get back with you. And that's been one of the phrases I've used for many years, and it's served me well, and it'll serve you guys well in your careers as well as on the board. So speaking to managers primarily, and it's good for you board members to know your managers having sort of a foundational set of knowledge in certain areas, I've listed down 6 here, which seem to coincide with the CAI M200 track, which is an educational track that CAI offers, a national organization that we all fall back on. And all your managers will be expected to have at least a core bit of knowledge in facilities management, communication, leadership, governance, risk management, financial management. I know that Kate later will talk on a few of these topics. But I can tell you when it comes to developing these competencies, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily a full expert in them. In my career now, which is over 25 years, I can tell you I've actually engaged experts in each and every one of these areas at a time or another that we really needed it. But yet, you still need to develop this particular core competency, and I really recommend everybody look at those M200 classes with CAI. Moving to the next slide. The important thing with experts is you need to use qualified experts. It's not like calling Uncle Wally, who's got a nice, grass yard out front, and asking him how to fertilize the lawn in a large-scale community. You really need qualified people that are trained in these areas and that have a real expertise in what they do and that you don't have. And the whole idea here is to give the board the proper knowledge and guidance to make a good decision on a vexatious problem. That's just how it works. So the reason you want to do that, however, is to shield the board, not only enable them to make a great decision, but also give them a layer of protection in case anything were to happen down the road. The board needs to fall back on the business judgment rule, which just means you need to deliberate and make a decision in a rational, reasonable way that a reasonable person would make. And in more cases than not, even if you make the wrong decision as a board member, as long as you've done the process right, you're protected from liability in many cases. But more often than not, that's very rare that something will go wrong. If you've got a good expert, you're going to come to a good conclusion. So now looking at some of these experts, attorney, of course, is on top, and they're on speed dial for me. Engineers, contractors, service providers, CPAs, risk managers, reserve analysts, all of these areas, especially you managers, you should be developing a database, a little, tickler file of experts you can reach out to. And oftentimes if you don't have the expert, it's been my experience as well as observing for other properties that oftentimes if you don't pay them now, you'll pay them later. And you don't want to waste money, and that's what it is. So my advice is to really get an expert, get them some good opinion, or get your board some good opinion, and then move forward from them. And the cost, sure, that's a big, that's something to consider. But the cost, the investment, has always been a good thing for me in my career. So some practical advice. How do you find a good expert? Especially for you board members that really aren't even plugged into the, the community management sphere. There's really some good ways to go about that. Recommendations from others, other managers. If you've got a management company, they probably have a cadre of people that they can fall back on. There are professional directories that you can use. There are functions you can go to within the Community Association Institute world. And all of those are good ways to reach out. I find it very effective to reach to other managers. So once again, the key there is reputation. You want somebody that really has a good reputation, that knows what they're doing, that has good credentials behind them. And quite honestly, when you can get one that understands the HOA world, you're so much better off, because we tend to be a little bit different than just a typical commercial entity. So you get your expert. What do you do with them? I would caution against just saying, well, I've got my expert, here's what I want, call me when you're done. Instead, I think you would be better served if you stay an active participant with the expert as a partnership, if you will. And as an active participant, you'll ask questions. One of the reasons you'd want to ask the expert questions is because your homeowners or your contingency, your community, will be asking you. That may be a board or a manager. And so if you can get a little bit ahead of the game and look at what they're doing, the expert is offering advice on, and look at it from the perspective of a homeowner. And I think then you can kind of come around to what you need to know and what you need to communicate when necessary. But you also need to get routine updates, especially if it's a project that this expert's going to work on, say a contractor or engineer. You need to understand clearly what they're telling you. I'm not beyond taking notes. Sometimes I take a little memo, voice memo on my phone. Sometimes I draft a little note in memos. I'm big at that. So, and sometimes just the traditional old school notes. It's not bad to do that. So you can refer back to them, and then also refer back to them when you're talking to your expert. But finally, I want to mention sometimes you need to prepare also for not necessarily taking their advice. It's rare you do that, but there will be times that you're given a choice of outcomes that an expert gives you. He may give you an A, B, or C. The board decides to do C, or maybe even D, that is nothing after deliberation. As long as the board goes through its due process, looks at everything, including the politics, the dollars, then the board can make a reasoned decision there. The one thing I would caution you, however, is it's so easy for boards, because you're so responsible for the finances, to fall back on not doing something because it's expensive. Deferred maintenance is the worst thing you can do, because whatever you can do today is going to cost you more tomorrow. So I really recommend, tackling these problems and trying to solve them as best you can. So looking into the next session, once again, and the board may be involved here too, question and evaluate using common sense with your experts. And sometimes you got to stand back and say, hey, expert, define what you're saying. Sometimes they speak in a different language than you, especially in the legal arena or the engineering arena. But just look at things and try to come to a conclusion that a reasonable person would do. Remember your responsibility, and that's to make a reasoned, sound decision, or if you're a manager, to facilitate a reasoned, sound decision from the expert's advice. And finally, there is always the opportunity to get a second opinion. If you don't like what an expert says, much like your own health care, you might want a second opinion, and that's an option. So keep that in your back pocket as well. So those are some of my my ideas on experts. I cannot emphasize enough how important experts are to managing your community and doing a really good job at running things for the whole community. So hopefully there'll be a few things there. The next thing is tech, and I'm just a big tech guy. I love talking tech. I've done shows on techs, and I just love tech. So keep that in your in the back of your mind as you're hearing me talk about that. I get excited, but I've seen this industry morph from just mounds of paper to emails to that you printed occasionally to now app-based items. And I think that this is the future of us. We're going to be doing less and less paper, more and more electronic, and more and more archiving as well. And we found at our property here, just our single property, that we don't keep, and as much as we can, we don't keep too many physical files. We keep electronic files on a backed up server, which is really nice. But if you remember the next slide, if you remember the old Ferris Bueller movie, where Ferris looks in the screen and says, hey, life moves fast, but you know what? Tech moves even faster. And so I get excited about that. Some people don't. But what I do is I look around actively for ways that technology can make my life easier, that can make decisions even for me at times, can do things where it frees me up to deal more with the personal relationship with my community. And I embrace tech. I love tech. And so there are ways that it can certainly save you money, save you time, and clearly make things a lot easier for you. So looking at some practical advice, I think the most important thing is to stay plugged into technology, whether you use your phones, your iPads, your computers, in as much as you can. If you're a person that does not do that, no big deal. You've got other people that will. So don't get too wrapped up if you're just not a tech person, don't like computers. But really support the effort for those that do, because they're going to be saving you a lot of money and bringing you a lot of benefit and a lot of value down the road. Hopefully they will never stop learning, that they'll reach out to tech companies, and if there's not a particular solution to a need, they'll help develop and fill a need, and I'll talk to that in a minute. Tech can scan for efficiencies. I know we're early adopters here at Regatta Seaside, and I'll mention that in a minute, but we also engage it and we leverage it. For example, some of the things we do here at our particular high-rise in LA, we're in a seismic zone. We reached out and met a tech company that is, and had to get permissions from USGS. It has thousands of servers throughout California. And with their backbone, we have developed the first earthquake early warning system for a residential high-rise in the nation. Now, a lot of commercial entities are plugging into this, LA Metro, NBC Universal, but when it comes to homeowners, think about that. If the, quote, big one comes, our homeowners will have a minute to a minute and a half warning to get into a safe zone and out of danger. And we can also open gates and shut down chiller towers and all this other stuff, all automated and with some lead time. And so we've done that here. It's being rolled out to some other communities. If anybody from California is on this call. We've also partnered with a water sensing technology, which I'll speak on again here in a minute, where we've helped them develop some technology for HOAs. We've also got a commitment to automating all of our electrical systems. It saves energy. It helps us automate everything. We even have gone so far as to, when the first iPad came out in 2010 or 11, that was the last day we printed a board pack. And our board packs range anywhere from 350 to 700 pages. Can you imagine not having to print that and tab it and divide it for 5 directors plus the manager and maybe a managing agent? We put everything onto iPads in a PDF file that are categorized and bookmarked, and we provide that iPad to the director. We also provide them their own email addresses so that we can keep them protected from their private ones being used for HOA business, because in the court of law, you don't want all your private stuff brought out. So we do that as well. So one of the things, for those on the next slide here, so when I first came to Regatta Seaside, I came out of the hospitality industry, and I noticed that at the front desk, we have a 24-hour front desk here at Regatta. There were 7 binders, not those little ones, but those big ones that are 4 inches or 5 inches, just full of paperwork, giving the front desk instructions, doing package sign-outs, any kind of operational things you can imagine at the front desk. We've replaced all 7 of those binders by using this cloud-based application here called Building Link. And Building Link does so many things for us, from package handling to notifications. We push notifications. It even has a bulletin board if homeowners want to, sell something amongst themselves. There's so many things that we can do from this. I can, every day when I get up, even when I'm not working, I'll read shift logs from the previous night to make sure there wasn't something that needed us to address. And that's all handled from my phone or my iPad. And I can do it remotely, which is really cool. I'm sure some of the large-scale communities, if you have a few on the webinar today, have something similar, or there may even be competing products. But I'm telling you, this technology has saved us a lot of time and made us so much more effective and efficient. Moving on to the next, I spoke about our water sensors. We partnered with a company called Wally Labs, and we installed over 1,500 water sensors in our building, behind toilets, in hot water closets, under sinks, under appliances. And they are strategically placed within our community, but they would do no good if we didn't have a notification from the front desk. So we architected here at Regatta, we literally built the dashboard that we now have at the front desk that their techie guys put together. And any one of those sensors were to go off, we have an immediate notification at our front desk, where, when, what's going on, and we can dispatch somebody. Now, the future of our technology is we're hoping to eventually develop a valve where we can turn a valve off so we've got the water off before we go up and dispatch somebody, and then we can turn it back on after we address whatever the issue is. So looking at tech, and this is a big picture item, here at Regatta, we attend sort of these national facility seminars to sort of get our arms around the tech. I have a very tech-forward board, which is really nice. And you hear about the Internet of Things and smart buildings, but the future of tech is really, I heard the phrase for the first time a few weeks ago at a seminar, and it's cognitive buildings. They're going to take these smart sensors and technologies and start making them, programming those to make the decisions for us. And these cognitive buildings now, we're going to, if it detects a water leak, it'll automatically turn things off, notify us, send somebody out, track them. And so that's really the future of this particular field of tech. And it's just, there's so many possibilities. I just want to give an introduction to it and let you know that this can really help, in my opinion, many associations across the nation, and especially for those of us that have a lot of engineering amongst ourselves. In fact, just the other day, I was on the phone for an hour talking to a company about robotic security. So, so there you go. There's just unknowable ways that this is going to change our lives in the next 5 to 10 years. So finally, my final tip here for everybody is, you know, the phrase everybody knows, good things come to those who wait. Well, I think it's good things comes to those who work their asses off and never give up and stay engaged. And so that's my hope and tip for everybody is just, you know, just stay engaged and you'll make a big difference. And there's nothing better than making a big difference. So there you go. Thank you so much.
Hey, that's fantastic, Robert. Thank you so much for putting that package together. I was thinking that you were introducing so much technology that is going to make things go away, but you wrap it up by saying that it takes time to embrace that technology, and time to test it, time to say, hey, can't that be developed for us? And in addition, it's not just getting it done and thinking about efficiencies, but the work that you're doing there at Regatta Seaside makes me think that that makes it a more attractive community to live in, and that improves the customer and the homeowner experience. And so it's just there's a lot of depth to the kind of work that you do. And again, looking into it, the innovation, and then the application, it takes time. So it's a nice package there. Well, I thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time, and now it's time to hear from Kate Hightshoe, who's going to share some tips and lessons from her point of view as a portfolio manager. So Kate, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Robert. Thanks, Paige and Robert Sides. I'm excited to be here this afternoon, and thank everyone for tuning in. Again, if you aren't familiar with Association Reserves or the Manager of the Year contest, of course, we encourage you to get involved. It's a great opportunity and a lot of fun. So, you know, in regard to tips for success, you know, I have really kind of boiled down my whole platform into kind of 3 overarching themes that I've come up with over time. And you know, Robert Sides is, you know, a 20-year vet in the industry, and I still learn things. You know, I learn things from listening to his presentation, and I learn things every day. I come from a corporate background, and I've been able to integrate a lot of the things I learned in my past jobs into community association management. And I've been in the business for about 8 years. In regard to HOA specific business and this industry. And, you know, I think one of the things that I can say that I've really learned over time is that, you know, how do we actually plan for the success we desire? Is it something that people just luck into? And I would say that that's not true. The opportunities don't happen, that you create them. And so, you know, really for me, when I think about how do I define success, the first key is having a vision. And one of my favorite things that I tell my team, I have a lot of young people that I work with on the team, I tell them that, you know, working without a vision is like traveling without a destination. It's hard to say where you might end up. And so you don't want to leave your career, you don't want to leave, you know, your professionalism and what you're doing up to chance. I think that you have to have a specific vision. And success means different things to different people, right? Your team is going to have one idea. The boards, thank you for joining us today. Boards are going to have a different idea of what success means to them. But the idea is to gain consensus for the vision and be able to see it, truly envision what success looks like and how you're going to get there. And some of the key tools that you can use in regard to creating kind of that roadmap for yourself are strategic planning sessions, brainstorming activities, There are all kinds of different ways to really understand how to create your roadmap. So another thing that I've taken along my journey from my professional experience is just, there are tons of best business practices out there that can help you turn your vision into a reality. And so, I say up your game. I mean, just because this is community association management and HOA industry doesn't mean that there aren't tools out there that can be applied to any business, regardless of what it is. And so some of the things that I constantly go back to is, first of all, understanding what are those top 3 to 5 things that are mission critical to your success. We don't want 20 things. We don't want a dozen things. We want the top 3 to 5 that are mission critical. And some of the really, really great tools that I work with my team are defining what your key performance indicators are, KPIs. In other words, what matters most. And scorecards, right? So if you can create a scorecard with your key performance indicators as the different lines in your scorecard and continue to enter data and metrics, your goals and visions will be SMART. And again, SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And without data and metrics, we're just guessing. We might feel like we're doing well, but without measuring it, it's hard to tell. I think another tool that I'm really a big fan of has to do with process improvement. And it's so easy just to go along and keep doing the same things the same way because that's how we've always done it. But really, if we want to understand how we move the needle over time, it has to do with what are the processes? Have we defined the processes? Does everybody know what they are? Are they efficient? Are they working? So, I really want everyone to embrace the mindset of continual process improvement. I think that even when we reach our goals or we think we've reached our goals, there's always room to have things better than they were the day before. And so there are all kinds of process improvement ideas. You can find them online. There are process improvement specialists out there that you can work with. Again, like Robert Side said, work with experts. We don't have to be experts in everything, but we definitely need to know who the experts are that we can call upon to make ourselves more effective in the work that we do every day. The second big tip that I want to provide everyone in regard to reaching success after your vision, it has to do with focus on the customer experience. And, a great quote is saying, just having satisfied customers isn't good enough anymore. If you really want booming business, you have to create raving fans. And so, for me, I strongly believe in focus on the customer experience through quality initiatives, right? And what this really means is having a customer-centric mindset. And having that focus will simply lead to better business decisions, okay? I think so often in this specific industry, community association management, we often talk about the people we serve as homeowners or residents or tenants, right? But at the end of the day, it's no different than the customers of Microsoft and Apple and Google, right? I mean, they're customers. And so there have been tons of studies done by Forbes, by all kinds of different industry sort of people who do, research out there. I mean, businesses that focus on customer experience through quality initiatives enjoy the rewards of so many different things above their competitors, all right? Right? Better customer and employee retention, higher margins in net income, greater revenue potential, more productivity, improved brand and reputation. There are just so many things that come out of quality initiatives. And there are lots of things out there. Again, there are experts we can work with that help us understand how to focus on quality. I love this family. And I also love the saying that they have as their family slogan. But quality is remembered long after the price is forgotten. That is so true, right? You know, when we're at a cash register and, you know, we go to check out and we see that price tag, and it might hurt for a second. But if the quality of our purchase was fantastic, we won't even remember the price. And that's just the reality of how we function as people. Another fantastic quote says, if you take care of your people will take care of your customers, and your business will take care of itself. Of course, that's by Marriott, right? Two really, really successful entrepreneurs. And I enjoy both of their quotes quite a bit when it comes to the customer experience. The third tip that I really, really think is important for boards, property managers, trade partners, vendors, anybody in the world doing business, even in our day-to-day personal relationships, has to do with effective communication. Communication leads to community, that is, to understanding, intimacy, and mutual valuing. Words, once they're printed, have a life of their own. And I know that everyone out there knows that this is true. We've all had probably sender's regret or remorse at least once, right? You hit send and you go, oh, I should have taken a little more time with that. Or you read it 2 days later and you cringe and you say, oh, I should have let myself cool off a little bit before I sent that email. Effective communication is one of the most cost-effective tools we have at our fingertips that can impact our business, right? So how do we create effective communication? There's so many different elements that go into it, and it's worth taking the time and getting it right. We want to consider the audience of the customer demographic. A townhome HOA with millennials needs a different type of message than the 55 plus active adult condo OA, right? You got to consider your audience. What tone is appropriate? You know, not every subject deserves the same emotional tone behind the message. Who needs to know? What are the facts? Are we asking for an action? So it's very important to take the time to understand, how do you tailor, how do you set up the message so it's effective? So when we have written communication, okay, again, you can't take words back. And my boss, I love this quote. One of the things he says to me all the time is, not if, but when you're quoted in whatever daily paper in the city you live in, are you going to feel good about what you said? Okay. I mean, the way things are today with social media and emails, you really have to be cognizant of what you're putting in writing. So proofread the emails, avoid emotional responses, avoid sarcasm and personal humor because the other party may not receive that well, okay? Professional greetings. Instead of just going into email, please do such and such. Hello, you know, so-and-so. Hope you had a great weekend. I was wondering if you could do a few things this week, and then start to get into the body of the request in the email. Emojis, abbreviations, LOL, IDK, you know, all of that stuff is fine for a text or for personal language, but I think it's very important that when you are doing written communication, you're very aware of the level of professionalism that you are embedding in your message. And then when it comes to oral communication, whether it's in a scenario like this, a webinar where you can't see my face, or even if it's in person in a live presentation, you know, again, even though today you can't see me, you know, I made sure that I dressed appropriately for the occasion because it sets the tone for myself, right? Dress for success. Understand your body language and best practices. You know, I get on Netflix and I watch different presenters and speakers and politicians and whoever. And I pick out the people that I admire most and I watch them and I study them. And I ask myself, why are they effective? Videotape yourself and practice. Practice in front of in front of coworkers, mirrors. And you always want to consider inflection, volume, velocity of the speech. These are all things that can really help you be effective. And again, back to that expert, there are all kinds of classes and coaches on public speaking that can be very helpful. I think the final thing that I'd like to say about effective communication is, of course, we all think we're communicating effectively, or we wouldn't communicate the way that we're doing it today. But the truth of the matter is that we have to get feedback. So we need surveys. Use your scorecard, right? Use the metrics. After you send out a really important critical communication, send out a one-question survey. You know, find out if it was successful, if it was impactful. So just in terms of wrapping everything up, my big takeaways, right, for how to be successful, whether it's in this industry, but this industry specifically, or really in anything you do in life, you have to have a vision. It needs to be specific, okay? You got to focus on the customer experience, because that's what will keep people coming back, all right? And the third thing is effective communication. And this one should rise above all others, because this affects our day-to-day life with our bosses, with our boards, with our homeowners, with our loved ones, and especially in the world of community association management, where sometimes we do have financial restraints. This is the cheapest, most economic resource we have to make a difference every single day. So again, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Kate. I hope everyone here has been taking notes. I certainly was. I have a copy of this presentation. I'm jotting things down. I liked what you said just leading off, because I think so many managers just think that they're managing. And for you to set the stage by suggesting that they have to define what are they really trying to accomplish and get the board on the same page, and understanding that the board is a client. They will look at things differently and think of things with business terms, keeping the customer satisfied. And like you said, whether you're a store or whether you're a big company, the client needs to be pleased with what you're doing, with the quality of the effort that you're putting in, the quality of the presentation, typos, clarity of speech. There's so many different things. So thank you very much. These are great principles. They're great ideas, and like you say, they're low cost or no cost, which makes a board member smile, and they're going to make life better for you as a manager, your management company, the board members, and the homeowners who are the end recipients. So thank you very much. Now, as a reminder, it's the Manager of the Year contest that brings top managers like Robert and Kate to the forefront. It allows those leaders, those experts in the industry, to tell their stories, and it will allow you as a manager to sharpen your skill set as you compete with other managers across the country. It's inspiring to be in this portfolio, in this category of individual. Now, as a manager, you can apply online beginning January 10th at www.manageroftheyear.org, and we welcome that. Applying is free, and the prize money is generously provided by the contest sponsors. Currently, Association Reserves, our company, ADT, Kevin Davis Insurance, and silver sponsor is Alliance Association Bank. These are all familiar names, national companies serving the community association industry, and proud to be associated with manager excellence. So on behalf of the three of us today, I'd like to thank you for attending this webinar, joining us to hear some inspiring ideas to challenge you, the managers you work with as board members, to higher levels of performance and service next year. And at this point in time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Paige, who will serve as our MC for the Q&A portion of today's program. Paige.